If you have a problem, I will send you a link to it, and then we will be able, after that point in time, you'll be able to both look at the video as well as everything as we go through this. Now, before I begin, I really want to talk about the syllabus. I sent everybody a copy of the syllabus, but let me just go over it with you so we can understand what's going on. Before we go any further, however, obviously, let's pray. Thank you, Father, so much for today and for the blessings you give us. I pray that you please be with us as we enter this time of study. Help us, Lord, to realize that, as you said in your word, when the fullness of time came, you sent forth your Son, born of a woman. And, Lord, it was at this time that you worked it out to where most of the world at that time knew Greek. Father, in your wisdom, you wanted everybody to know about your Son and the salvation through him. And Father, we continue to be amazed at your love and care for us. We pray that you continue to be with us and strengthen us. And Father, especially please be with me as I strive to teach this class, that I might do the very best job that I can, and that we take our time, be patient with one another, and grow as we need to in your grace and your knowledge. Strengthen us now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, if you've not yet received, and I sent out a syllabus earlier via the email. Hopefully everybody received that. Can everybody still see me? I'm going to another section of the internet, so okay, there we go. All right, so as long as everybody can see me and see what's going on. This is the spring quarter. This class will go from today through June the 22nd, every Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. What we're trying to do in this class is to teach Greek. And more than anything else, we're going to give you the very basic fundamentals, but it's something that you continue to learn more and more. Very quick question. How many people have taken other languages and are very well at it? Anybody? I'm hearing crickets here, so there we go.
No.
Okay. Do what now?
No.
No. So this is going to be interesting as well, because learning a different language sometimes means, and this is where the problem is a lot of times, we have to relearn the way we think and the way we speak when we're talking about this language. So what we're going to do, as I said, is teach New Testament Greek, give you some fundamental things as we go through it. Hopefully, as you take the next quarter, you will be able, before the end of this quarter, to translate some of the Bible passages, okay, straight from the Greek. That's what our plan is. I'm also going to take this course slowly enough to help everybody stay on board, but I also want to make it interesting enough as not to discourage anybody. We'll talk about the tools to help us in our study of New Testament Greek, and that's where we're going to go. You have on the syllabus my name, my email address, my office phone number, as well as my cell phone number. So again, if you need that, I will make sure that everybody gets an extra copy of that tonight or sometime if you don't have it. For the text will be The Essentials of New Testament Greek by Ray Summers. Now, whenever I was taking this course, I had to take a course under J. Gresham Machen. And Machen was the major guy that was teaching at this time. He was writing his text back in the 1800s. Okay, so he went through a lot more material a lot quicker than this book will. This book takes it a little bit slower. You can pick this book up on Amazon.com, as well as, and this will help you in this, I want you also, if you would, to buy this workbook. Here it is. It's Essentials of New Testament Greek, revised by student Stephen L. Cox. And what you really do in this book is they will give you some of the assignments, and it will work through the assignments, but it will also, this is the workbook. So you will be practicing how to write Greek. You will be practicing how to say the Greek words. And as we continue on through the book, as you are discussing this, you're going to start finding how this book and this workbook will really help you to learn and relearn and reaffirm everything that I'm trying to teach in this class. It will cost a lot of money, but again, anytime you're wanting to learn a language, it's going to cost something. It's going to cost some time, some effort, some energy. So again, you could probably pick this up relatively cheap on Amazon. And if not, it's going to be worth it. requirements, okay? You're learning a new language, okay? So to learn a new language, you literally have to immerse yourself in it. So I'm wanting you and encouraging you to spend at least an hour a day. If you've got an hour, you need to do this. And I want to assure you that I'm going to be spending the hour a day as well, because it's been some time since now to tell you my background in Greek, I took a year of Greek at Magnolia Bible College. I then went back later at a later time and took 2 more courses in Greek readings, where you're actually reading it and interpreting it as you're reading from the Greek text, to get my master's degree. One thing I found is if you don't use it, you lose it. Okay, so that's part of the reason why I'm going to try to emphasize to you that by staying in this, and if you continue to study this over a period of time, you will be able to master it. Somebody told me, now I haven't yet really found out if this is the case or not, somebody told me that if you spend an hour a day in a particular subject, that over the course of a year, that's going to make you a scholar. Okay, so when you think about it in that respect, just be patient with yourself. That's one of the things that discouraged me a lot. I wasn't patient with myself. There were other people that picked up quicker on it. Some people's minds are wired to where they can pick up quicker on a language, and they can have 2 or 3 languages. Some folks' minds aren't. I'm one of the ones that aren't. Okay, it is like pulling tooth and nail sometimes with me trying to learn a separate language. That's the reason why that I don't want to discourage you, because anytime you're learning a new language, it presents difficulties. You have to think of things differently. You have to think of the way they would put things together. And this is true if you're taking up Spanish or French or anything else. They do things differently. So again, in English, we do things a certain way, and we sit back and say, well, why can't they do it our way? But again, remember that back in, let's be literal. When Paul and Peter were writing the Bible, there was no such thing as English. There was no such thing as the English language back then. So you have to just come to grips with that. So think about this. You will be graded. If you keep up with all the assignments and the homework, you'll profit more ways than you can imagine, and that's what I'm going to be striving to do. You'll be graded on your participation in class. Again, if you're unable to attend, if you're sick or something like that, let me know. I am going to copy and record these videos, and then I will also, after each class session, by the next day or by the evening of the next day, I will have this video posted where you can go to my YouTube site and you can go over what we covered. So that way will help you in that respect as well. When we start learning the words, you will be given weekly vocabulary tests. Okay? Just grasp that ideal and embrace it. Then you will have a midterm and a final. Now, some of you are saying, oh man, this is too much work. I'm ready to bail out. No, don't bail out, okay? Now, again, if at any time you're feeling like you don't get it, as I said, be patient with yourself, and I'll do what I can to help you get through it, all right? That's my job. My job is to help you learn it. It's fascinating. To me, it's fascinating the way God used Greek in that it gives us further meanings of the text and help us to understand the Bible better. Let me just give you one word right now, just off the top of my head, that I think of. When you think of the word patience, a lot of times that word is used, okay? But it actually is a Greek compound word. The Greek compound word is hupotasso. Hupo, which is a preposition, which means under, and tasso, which means to bear. So when you read the word patience in the Bible, the word most of the time is hupotasso, which means not patience like we have, something you have to put up with, but it's that more of the ideal of bearing up under a load, like a donkey would carry a load. So whenever you think about, he says, patience is one of the fruits of the Spirit, it's the ideal of learning to bear up under whatever load God gives you. That's a whole different aspect than what we understand as patience. And there's a lot of words like that in the Greek that once you really begin to understand those, and I will, as we go through here, also be showing you some places you can go to where you can actually download the Greek text and cheat sheets, okay, to where you could, if you download this particular program, which is free, it'll show you the Greek word. It'll tell you whether it's a verb or a noun, how it's used in the sentence, and also give you definitions for it. But I'm not going to do that up front because I don't want nobody cheating. I want you to learn right now the hard way, and then toward the end of class, I will show you some of this other stuff. If you feel like you don't get it, again, let me know. You've got my phone number. And again, as I said, some people are going to pick it up very quickly, some others not, but be patient and it will come to you. And the last thing I said in the syllabus, anything worth knowing is worth working for. Okay? So don't get discouraged. That's the main point that I really want to get across tonight. Okay? Don't get discouraged as we continue to go through this. Now, if you're in my class here at the school right now, I've given out some things, and I also sent you a link to a workbook or Machen's workbook. Now, what I'm trying to do is tonight, hopefully in this next week, you will be able to order the books and we will start going through that. But tonight, the main thing I want to do for the rest of the night is go through the alphabet, learn how to pronounce the alphabet, and then actually start learning how to write these words and giving you an opportunity, maybe, I don't know if we can or not, but maybe by the end of this class time to start, even though you don't know what you're saying, to start learning how to pronounce the words, okay? And what I have done is I've taken a copy of the Greek New Testament. And again, if you are watching this online, I will try to show you this. This is a copy of the Greek New Testament I made a copy of. I will send this to you, but simply put it like this, like this word, this one here, right here on this, everybody can see it? Okay. Yes. This is the first chapter, the first verse of the Gospel of John. Okay. And it says, Euangelion to kata huane. That's the title of the book. Euangelion is the gospel according to John. Okay. And then the very next words are, in arche hein hologos. Now, most of us know John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. That's the way it was in the Greek. In arche. In beginning was the Word. And then he says, kai hologos hein proston theon. And the Word was with God. And then kick in on this side, kai theos hein hologos. And God was the Word. Whereas in the English, we translate it, and the Word was God. Here in the Greek, it's God was the Word. So I'm just saying that not to brag about this, but before the end of the evening, hopefully some of us will start reading verse 2. All right? Let's go now. And if you're online, you should see this pop up, which is the alphabet of the New Testament Greek. Does everybody see that? Do you see that, Misty?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Do you see that? Okay. All right. Now, this was the copy of the book that I had to study out of back in the 1980s. This book at that time, this was early 1980s, and this book cost me $20-something at that time. So if you can imagine now, it's about 45 or 50. The books that I'm selling you or trying to get you to buy now, both of them together might not be $50 total. Okay. All right. So here's the Greek alphabet. You have capital letters as well as small letters. And what I'm going to do is I try to go through here is get us all to say it and say it. All right. So the first letter, like in our alphabet, is A, right? But now here's how you would write. This is really going to blow your mind. Here's how you would write the alpha. Okay. That looks simple. Got that one right. But now the small letter. You start at the top and you go and do just like that. Okay. You see? Now, I know in that particular phrase, but see, this is part of another thing that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to give you some words and you're going to have to write it in the Greek. So you need to learn how to write it. So practice it. Practice it. Alpha, alpha. That's the way you write the small letters. Now, what's interesting about this, the only time that you really find capital letters in the Greek language is when it's talking about a person's name or the start of a sentence. Okay? That's it. Pretty well, that's it. Even as you go through this, just realize that as you go through here. The word is alpha, and you say this A as father, father, father. Say it. Father, not A, Okay? Come on, I can't hear you. There you go. There you go. All right? You've got, the next word is beta. Okay, that's B. Duh, right? Oh boy, you're sitting there thinking, this is easy. Write it out. But when you're making the letter, you start here, the small letter, it goes up like that. You'll always start it like that. Start it down here at the bottom, okay? That's beta, and it's where you get the letter B, okay? So beta, B. All right, the next letter, now we're going to get changed a little bit. The next letter is gamma. Alpha, beta, gamma. By the way, how many of you maybe went to college and you heard of all these sororities and the fraternities? All these fraternities have these Greek letters in them in one way or another, okay? So gamma is like this, and this is how you would write it. You would start down, you'd come back up like that. Start down and come back up like that. But that makes a, and we would get confused if we're looking at that in the English. What does that look like? Y. But it's not a Y, nor does it make the letter sound Y. This is a G. This is a G, like got. Got, so it's G, okay? So you got alpha, beta, gamma. All righty? All right, everybody can see this, okay? So as we continue on, the next letter is delta. What does that make? The D sound. All right, and again, the delta would be the delta, the capital delta is going to be like this. And the smaller delta, or the little letter, you're going to start up here, and you're going to make it like that. Okay? You're going to start here, and just make it like that. Practice that. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So far, so good, right? Pretty good. Now, let's go back to gamma just a minute. Suppose here's a word. This is the word angelos. Now, when you think of the word angelos, you get what? Angel, right? And the word angelos can mean an angel or it can mean a messenger. It's just simply a messenger. But notice here, you have two gammas together, okay? That doesn't make a agaga sound. It's a ang sound. This makes a sound of ng, not gg, okay? All righty, so just keep that in mind. And you're going to read some other things that's kind of going to blow your mind as we go through here too. But just kind of keep that in mind. Delta. The next letter is epsilon. And we would understand that as the E. And that's it. That's where you got, like the word get. Get. Now here, this E, and then you'd go like this. The epsilon would be made like this. That's simple, right? Just, there you go. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Epsilon. All right. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. All right. Now then, the zeta. That looks like a capital what? Z. But this actually makes a sound, and here's how you make it, okay? You make this little curly Q, and it looks like that. That's how it looks. Practice that. Practice that. Now that one is going to make different sounds in different situations. Sometimes it'll make a DZ sound, like an adds, like a particular tool that's an adds, A-D-Z-E, okay? And then sometimes it just makes a simple sound as a Z, okay? It depends on the word and depends on what the letters are around it. All righty? Any comments or questions? Are we going too fast? Okay? Alpha, say it with me. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta. Zeta, okay? All right, now the next one is what we think is H, but it's not. It's not. This is eta, not zeta, or Zeta, eta. Okay, now what does this look like? This looks like a letter N, but it's got a longer tail, right? All right. So if you're actually writing this letter and you remember how whenever you was in grade school, you had to follow these things this way. So this letter, this part will go below the line. In every situation, it would always go below the line. All righty? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta. All right? Then you have the word or the letter theta. Now again, when you're writing in Greek, the word theta, this is what it looks like capital. All right? If you're writing it and you're writing it fast, and again, back in those days, they would have to write fast, so you would write it like this. Okay? Making sure it goes across there just like that. All right? All right? That's the theta. And it makes a th sound. Th. Like the. Okay? You have iota. Iota looks like our I, but again, it's look like just like that. It's just a little. Now, what's interesting about this is later, we're going to talk about something called a diphthong. A diphthong is two vowels put together. All right? So sometimes you'll see this. All right? Sometimes you'll see the letter like this, where the iota or the iota is actually going underneath the letter. It's saying the same thing. I, like aisle. I'm going down the aisle. Same way you pronounce it in our language. Okay? What's interesting about this is a lot of our language and a lot of our words comes from the Greek language. Have you ever thought about that? So when you think about it, some of this is not that far-fetched for us, and that's the reason why some of it does make a lot more sense to us, okay? The next letter is kappa. Again. Okay? All right? And we think of it as, K. That's it, and that's what makes kappa sound. Lambda. Lambda looks like a delta, a capital letter, without the base. Okay? And then if you're making it, and this makes an L sound, so it looks like this. Practice that. Simple to make. And as I said, later on, I'm going to give you some English words, and you're going to have to write the Greek word out. So you need to know how to do this. This is why it's very important. All right? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda. Okay? Now the next one is mu. This makes the M sound. All right? Looks like our M, except in the small letter where it does this number. You have a tail on the front end of it. You see? All right? You have a tail on the front end of it instead of the back end of it like we showed you a moment ago when it came to the eta, right? Now, the next letter is nu. 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 You'd say the N sound. And again, we understand this. No problem. Okay? So the nu, but here again, what does the nu look like? It looks like a V. All right? So in Greek, it looks like in our language, it looks like a V, but in the Greek, it's the N. I have no doubt in my mind, as you're going through this and you're starting to read some of this, you'll start saying Ev instead of N. No, and that's what I was showing you a moment ago. For example, the words that I read a moment ago, arche, hein, hologos. Remember? So you'll want to say, well, that's a V. No, it's not a V. It's an N. Okay, so again, you just got to wrap your mind around that idea. Okay. The next letter is one we don't use a lot, but at the same time we do. This is called the key. As in, all right, you heard of the word relax. You hear that? All right. This is what we would call the X. Okay. And this letter is kind of fun to make, but it's also a pain to make. You got to kind of do it like this. All right? That's a smaller letter. All righty? So that's a C. Now, if you look in a lot of these letters, with the exception of the gamma, we say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, right? Pretty well with the Greek, it's the same thing, except right now we've not hit the F yet, right? And we've had a couple of letters gamma we don't have in the English. But notice he says alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, xi. Now, a lot of times whenever I do this, and I remember I had to, whenever I was in school, I had to memorize the alphabet. And you need to memorize the alphabet, obviously, okay? But I always would forget this one. Because in English, it's N-O-P, right? It's in Greek, it's N-Xi omega, okay? So don't forget this one, all righty? Questions or comments so far? Are we having fun yet? Good. Okay. Sitting there back, man, this is going to be so easy. All righty. I hope so. The next one is Omicron. Now, we think of this Omicron as what? Oh, and that's usually what it makes. But there's two letters in the Greek alphabet that make an O sound. You have the Omicron. Again, that's simple. It's just a small O. But then you also have what other letter? Omega. Okay, and that's the very last letter of that. All right, so by the way, in English as well as in Greek, you have certain vowels, right? In the Greek, it's alpha, epsilon, iota, omicron, and omega. And alpha, eta, iota, it just went blank. So you see, something I've got to work on too. Okay, yeah, I got it. And upsilon. That's what I was looking at. Okay. So you got A, E, I, O, and U in the English, right? In the Greek, A, alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, or omega, and upsilon. All right, so you've got a few others. And what makes this interesting is you've got some long and some short vowels. And that's going to come into play when you're having to do the accents. Now, in some of the Greek stuff that I have read, some of the teachers don't teach accenting at all. In the actual manuscripts, they did not accent in a lot of situations. But you see, everybody that was reading it at that time, they knew how the words, and they knew where the break would come. Okay? Again, at that particular time, as they were writing these letters, as in Hebrew as well as Greek. By the way, just as an aside, just to give you an interesting idea, the Hebrews do not have, in their writing, they do not have, or they have vowels, they know what the vowels are, but they do not write the vowels. When they translated the Old Testament from Hebrew into Greek, it multiplied size of the books over fourfold because they had to add in all the vowels. So what wound up happening is that's where we got the divisions, a lot of the divisions of the book. 1st and 2nd Samuel was one book in the Hebrew. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings was all one book in the Hebrew. It was the books of Samuel. Okay? So it was all one book. But whenever they broke them in, they actually had to break them into 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Samuel. And the reason was because they had to add the vowels that the Hebrew did not add. Again, at that time, they didn't go down to the local Bible bookstore and buy a Bible. They had to copy it, hand copy it. How many of you have ever tried to hand copy anything, word for word, and not make a mistake? Okay? Think about that one for a few minutes. All right? So as you're thinking about this, just understand that there's a lot of things going on that helps us to understand that a little bit more, and it helps us to to appreciate more us going down to the local Bible bookstore and picking up one and not having to hand copy it word for word. However, if we perhaps did have to hand copy it, we'd get it in our heads a whole lot better, right? Think about that. All right. All right, the next one is P. And that is the letter pi, right? And when we think about it mathematically, it's 3.14 blah, 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 infinity, right? That's where you get that. And that's where you get the word P. So this is what the P looks like. Okay? The next letter is rho. Now this looks like a capital P. And here is the little, but it is not a P. It is an R. It is an R. Okay, so it actually makes the rho sound, R sound. Sigma. Okay, any questions, thoughts? Anybody? Everybody still with me?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Here's a capital sigma. Here is the small sigma. But at the end of the sentence, or at the end of a word, whenever you write in the Greek, and it's got a sigma at the end of it, it's going to look like our S. Okay? But if it's in the middle of the word, it's going to look like, for lack of a better way to look at it, it's going to look like a 6 with a tail on the end of it. Okay? All right? At the end of the word, it will always look like our S, the English S. But in the middle of it, it's going to look like this. Okay? Then you have tau. And most of us know that. That's the letter T. And again, you're looking like this. Put a little curl on it. Okay? That's how you write that. All right? That's the regular T. Then you have the upsilon. Now that's a weird one, right? Upsilon. Upsilon. But that makes the U sound. It's like the French U or the German U. Okay? And this looks like our U. All right? And again, it is a vowel. All right? Then you remember the F? Here we are. It's the phi, okay? And here, again, you make it, and if you're doing this all in one motion, okay? We'll do it just like that, all righty? All right? Then, the chi, phi chi, and again, this looks like an X. Again, when you are reading, you will see these and you will want to pronounce X. You want to pronounce like relax. Remember what that letter was? That was the what? Psi earlier, remember? Right before the Omicron. So this is different. Whenever you're reading this from English, your mind is going to be saying that's an X. And you'll say, no, no, no. This is like the Achtung, okay? We'll hear that a lot if you're listening to Hogan's Heroes or hear the German language, Achtung. So it's that sound, all right? Then you have C. Again, both of these look about the same, and they're all made the same, all right? C, which makes the PS sound, and then finally, the omega. All right? And the omega, what does it look like? Like that. But then it looks like a, what to us? A W, right? But that makes an O sound. It's a long O sound. Okay? Omega, note. So understand that that's what's going on behind all the scene here. All right, so let's very quickly, together, you got it all together. Let's write or say through the alphabet. Alpha, say it with me. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, theta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, c, and omega. Now again, remember what I told you a moment ago about the gamma. If you have a kappa and a gamma, or a gamma and a gamma, or a chi and a gamma, what sound does that make? NG, angel, angel, okay? It'll always make an NG sound, okay? So when you have the word again, angelos, that's the reason why we get the word angelos. That's where and you transliterate it, it would be ANGELOS, okay? Now what do I mean by transliteration? Let's talk about that for just a minute. Sometimes to help you to understand some of these things, it might help for you to, as you're writing these words, for example, as you're trying to learn this, here is the Greek of the first verse of that. Hen, and I'll show you that in just a moment, what's all there. Okay, see, I just made a mistake, okay? NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. Okay? NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. Now, how would you write this? In English, transliteration is you would try to take the letters as they are. So you would write EN, A, R, CH, A. Well, see, sometimes it's A, but this is going to be a what? It's going to be a long A, RK. Alpha, A, all. But this eta is going to make it a long A. It's going to sound like a long A, eta, right? Alpha, Rho, Chi, eta. Now here also, remember I said a moment ago that sometimes the iota becomes a subscript. Here you have it here. You'll have an alpha subscript, you'll have an eta with a subscript, you'll have an omega with a subscript. We'll talk about that more a little bit in just a few minutes, okay? Okay, class is going on pretty well, but sometimes we'll see how the letters are actually tied in together in that respect. NRK, how would you say this word? Come on, give it a try. NRK. All right, and what do you have here? You have the eta and the what? You can't see this?
Well, I'm trying to make sure that's all right.
Okay, that's an eta and a nu. So, NRK, Hain. Now you're saying, how did you get the H there? Okay, were you asking that? In the Greek, you don't have a letter H. Okay, but they would make what they call a rough breathing. The rough breathing looks like a very small letter C. So like right here. All right. N, you've got a rough breathing, which looks like a C, and you've got a smooth breathing that looks that way. This is usually right before words that start with vowels. Okay, so here you have N. N. You don't say H here because that's a smooth breathing. N. It's like there's nothing there. But when you've got like this one here too, that is a omicron, but it's got a rough breathing on it. So it would be ho. NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. Okay. NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. All right. Am I losing everybody? Everybody getting it? Now again, if you're having a problem, let me know because I want to take the time to work through this. All right. All right. Let me stop the share for just a minute. Can you see my writing on the board now? NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. This is the first part, John 1, verse 1. NRK, Hain, Ho, Logos. So let me, again, kind of break this down for you. Here's how it's written. N, RK, Hain, Ho, Logos. Okay, now let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Again, when a letter starts with a vowel, you will either have a rough breathing that looks like that, or a harsh breathing. And when it has a harsh breathing, you say H. So if this had a harsh breathing on it, it would be hin, not N, hin. Okay, here you have RK. But what kind of breathing do we have? It's a smooth breathing. RK. All right. And again, here you have, as I said a moment ago, the iota subscript. We'll talk about that more. Don't get discouraged yet. Don't get discouraged. No, well, just don't get discouraged, okay? Now, here in this word, you have, here is the accent, but you have the little, okay? So here it's going to be hain. NRK, hain. And then here you have again. This is only the letters that start off, or the words that start off with vowels. It will always, always have a breathing, a rough breathing or a smooth breathing on it one way or another. And it'll tell you how to pronounce it. So, NRK, hain, how would you say this? Oh. Now here you have a letter or a word starting with what? A consonant. So it's not going to have any breathing on it whatsoever. So what is that letter? Lambda. Lambda. So it'd be the L. What is that letter? Omicron. So La. And what's that letter?
Gamma.
Gamma. There you go. What's that letter? Omicron. And notice again what I said earlier. Here you have an ending sigma. So what does it look like? It looks like our regular S, right? If this was in the middle of the word, what would it look like? Like that, right? All right, so keep that in mind. NRK, hain, ho, logos. So everybody say it together. NRK, hain, ho, logos. Okay? Say it again. NRK, hain, ho, logos. Look at that, you're speaking Greek. Wow. Now, you're sitting there thinking, so I'm saying it, I don't know what it means, right? Okay, we're going to look at this. This is a preposition and all, but we'll look at that later. But tonight, all we're concerned about is getting you to say the word and know how to say it. If you, okay.
That's right. What's the superscript over that first Omicron and logos? Is that just a for
That is an accent.
accent? Okay.
I'm not even starting to study that right now because, again, that's going to be, now the accents will come important later because it will tell you where you push your emphasis. In the Greek, from what I've been understand, whenever they were given the accents in the Greek, it would talk about the musical pitch of the word. So they would actually kind of sing some of this stuff along. Okay? You have, just kind of briefly, you have the acute accent, you have the circumflex accent, which sometimes looks like this or this, and then you have the grave accent, the grav, okay? So, supposedly, if you were speaking in the Greek at that time, this accent would suggest that you would raise the pitch as you were saying the word or saying the syllable. This one, you would raise the pitch and lower the pitch when you said the syllable. And this one, you would go down. We can't mimic that. We don't have any Greek people living today that were living back then. So what we try to do now is just put the emphasis where the accent is. Now, as I said earlier, some Greek scholars, when they're trying to teach it, they say, don't worry about the accents. However, there are some words in the Greek that the accent and where it is accented makes a world of difference as to how it is translated. We have to, as much as we possibly can, figure out the accents, but that's another lesson. I don't want to overload you right now. One of the hardest things I have always struggled with in Greek is knowing how to accent a word. And more often than not, this was, by the way, the second lesson I had to take, and I never was really good at it. But what I began to learn is the more you learn the words, the more it's going to make sense to you as you go through it. Okay? So as we go through the accents and as it really starts to blow your mind, just don't fret about it a whole lot. I'm not going to get all upset about the accents as we go through this. This is something you will pick up on the more you start saying it, the more you start reading it. Notice also as you're reading this, in arche hein hologos, kind of sound, do you see how the pitches were up and down as we go through it? So again, just realize they had a musical character to it. We're just trying to emphasize it like that, but do you hear how smooth it is? In arche hein hologos. And then he goes around and then says what? The next words are kai hologos hein prostonteon. Kai hologos prostonteon. So again, there's that sing-song melody to it as you're going through it. But just understand now that all I'm trying to get you to do today is just to really see that and to get it from that viewpoint, okay? Now, the Greek vowels, I mentioned this a few moments ago. Now remember again, as you're writing this down, there's some of the letters that have to be started a certain way. I gave you some of those. The beta starts below the line. The rho starts below the line. The sigma, you can start up above the line. Okay, some of that starts below the line and above the line. So just be very careful as you're writing this. Because again, if you're not very careful, you could, as I'm reading and trying to understand what word you're writing, I could count it off because you're not writing it exactly. So go home this week. Remember, an hour a day? Go home this week and practice writing those letters. Go, yes, I don't care if it does embarrass you a little bit. Go get those grammar school with the middle lines broken and practice them all week long. Just all week long, just practice those letters and you'll find out how much easier it's going to be to write it. And that's part of the reason why I was showing you how to write it as we went through there, so that you could see that and do that. So keep that in mind. Now, what are the letters, or what are the vowels? Alpha, okay, iota, or excuse me, epsilon, iota, omicron, upsilon. And then you have alpha, eta, omega, iota, and upsilon. Now, these are long and short vowels. Okay? Now, again, everybody's kind of looking at me like, huh? What is a long and a short vowel? Okay? Again, in the Greek, it depends on how long you say that word or say that particular letter. Okay? Alpha could be long or short, depending on the other letters behind it. And epsilon is always short. It's always a short vowel. Eta is always a long vowel. Omega is always a long vowel. Iota could be long or short. Upsilon could be long or short. Okay? Now the reason for that is, this comes into play when you're starting to do the accents. You have to know if it's long or short to be able to accent it right. And that was another thing, and that was part of my problem as I was trying to go through this. And that's why, again, I'm not wanting to try to put too much stress on this, because sometimes if a vowel or a letter could be long or short, how am I going to know it's long or short in the word? By how long you keep it, or how long you say it, or how long you stretch it. And again, if we're going like we did a minute ago in arche hein hologos, that's not very long. You're not really finding it out, are you? Right? See what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. Now, you've got diphthongs. Diphthongs, that's a big word for two vowels together. Diphthongs is a combination of two vowels in a single syllable. The second letter of a diphthong is always a closed vowel. And the first letter is always an open vowel, except. This is the problem with languages. You have these rules, and then you have the exceptions. So this is part of the struggles with it. All right, so here are the common diphthongs. I, and you pronounce this as like aisle. We're walking down the aisle, okay? Epsilon iota, which sounds like fate, A. So this particular diphthong, and this letter sound a lot alike, don't they? Ada, right? Fate, fate. You have oi, which sounds like oil, oil. And by the way, again, interestingly enough, I've been watching some British shows on television. And I mentioned this the other night, but what's interesting to me is they actually use this little thing here, oi, as a mark of exclamation. So if you're walking out the door and you forgot something, I say, Chuck, oi, Chuck. And so it's kind of like, what? So it's oi. And it's still being used in the British language today. Where do they get that from? From the Greeks. Think about, again, God's plan to redeem us, as I mentioned in our prayer. When the fullness of time came, Greek was the universal language. So even though you may have been born in Rome, you would know Latin, but you would also know Greek because everybody spoke Greek. If you were living in Palestine, you would know Aramaic. If you were a biblical rabbi, you would know not only Aramaic, but you would know the Hebrew. And then you would also know Greek and possibly Latin, because again, the Romans were there. So there's a possibility that you could know so many different languages if you were living in Palestine during the time of Jesus. So when you use, and you have that many languages coming together, they're going to borrow from one another. They're going to use phrases that would be very clear in one language that you might have a struggle with a little bit later on, but you just, again, you would get your mind to thinking about it to where, to the point to where, what? It makes sense to you because this would be your everyday language. Okay? Then you had the word, or the diphthong, alpha, upsilon, which sounds like cow, owl, okay? Cow, owl, all right? You would have epsilon, upsilon, which sounds like feud, F-E-U-D, feud, okay? You would have the omicron, upsilon, which sounds like food. And then you'd have this one, the upsilon and the iota, which sounds like queen, U-E-E, queen, okay? So, there are a couple of other diphthongs, the eta and the upsilon, which is what? Eu and O. But you don't really see them that often. They are kind of hard to say. Sometimes, again, when you have these AI, EI, Omicron, or Omega I, sometimes this diphthong is written like this, where you have, again, the iota subscript. All right? And as I'm trying to look through some of this here just a moment and see if I could see one of these very quickly. Yes. Verse 3, in alto, okay, Zoe Hain. All right, so if you're looking at this, and again, I will send you a copy of this if you're taking this online. So I will show this to you. But here in verse 3, it says, in alto Zoe Hain, Kai Hain, Zoe. So going down here a little bit further, where did I see that? In alto. And again, notice, can you see it? I don't think you can. I'm sorry about that, but we'll do the best we can with it. But it's okay. If you're looking at it, it's in alto. Here's how it's written. Alto is like this, where you have that iota here. Okay, so here's what it looks like. Where is it? Yeah. Alto. In alto. But notice here, that makes, it's like the I is not pronounced. And in fact, if it is a iota subscript, the iota will never be pronounced, okay? Then you have the AU, alto, all right? All righty? Now, so that gets us through a lot of this. I've talked about the rough breathings and the smooth breathing, right? So again, in with that that's in. If it had the rough breathing, it would be hin, right? If you had who, and so forth. There's three accents: the acute, the circumflex, and the grave. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that next week in more detail. Punctuation. Punctuation. As you're going through the Greek, they have, now this kind of blows my mind too a little bit. When we end a sentence, what do we end it with? A period. When the Greeks end a sentence, they end it with a period. Ah, yes, that's easy. If you want to stop or start a break in a sentence, you would use a comma. The Greeks use commas too. All right, no problems about that. They use a colon. Now, a colon to us is that, right? And that means a kind of a harder stop. When you use it, you see it, you stop, but it's not as hard as a period. Again, in English, we don't even think about this stuff anymore, but we were taught this. So a colon is a harder stop. In the Greek, this is what a colon looks like. It looks like a colon, except that it doesn't have the bottom part. And when you have a question mark, now that's how we do it in Greek or English, right? That's a question mark. Here's what it looks like in the Greek. It looks like our semicolon. All right. I missed something on one of my first tests because I thought it was a semicolon. And they asked, what is this? And I said, it's a semicolon. Wrong. In English, it's a semicolon. In Greek, it is a question mark. So you will have those things. Now, here's your homework for this next week, okay? Work on this every day, an hour a day. Go find, if you can, go to the internet and find, let me see if I can find you something. Google New Testament Greek text. All right. And go down a little bit. And Nestle Alon Novum Testamentum Graece, and you can actually see it. So, in the first, if you click on that, the Nestle Alon, then you have the first word, Biblos Geneseos, Jesu Christu, Huiu David, Huiu Abram. Now, I am not concerned about whether or not you can interpret that. What I'm concerned about is you getting used to be able to look at the words and read the letters just like you would off an English book. So this week, what I want you to do is practice the letters, practice writing the letters, practice saying the letters, practice going through the alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa. Okay, go through the alphabet, practice the letters, and then, as I said, Google a New Testament Greek. And as I said, there, if you go down through there, about the third one down in my search, it comes up with Nestle Alon. And here's what it's going to look like. Well, where's that? Okay, Nestle Alon .com. Nestle Alon, www.nestlealon.com. And you pick it up and just click on it and start reading Matthew. It'll say Kata Matheon, okay? All right, start reading. And again, just work your way through it. Don't get frustrated. Just start working your way through it. And next week, we're going to start practicing this a little bit more. And then what we will all do is start talking very quickly about that. Hopefully, in that length of time, you will have your books. And if you have your books, then go ahead and do that first lesson in the books. As quick as you can get them, go ahead and do that first lesson in the book and in the Greek workbook, and then you'll be ready to go. Any questions for tonight? Any discouragement yet? Do not be discouraged. If you get stuck, that's the reason why I'm here. I'm here to help you, okay? Do not grow discouraged. And by the end of the 13 weeks, you'll say, I'm glad that I stayed the whole quarter. And I want to know more. All right? And God willing, that's what's going to happen. Thank you for your class and for being here. And any questions, you've got my email address, my phone number. Let me know. Okay? Thank you. We'll start there next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.